Welcome back to some more Monster Energy Supercross 3. Today we're going to be checking out 2020 Denver. Now for this video I did it a tiny bit different. I actually found a track on PC and 2 tracks on PlayStation 4. Now the 2 tracks on PlayStation 4 were pretty good. There were a couple I felt like were probably better, but they were made by people we had already seen. So I wanted to try and show off some tracks from people that we haven't seen yet. You know what I mean? And the PC track is one of, if not the best replica track I've ever seen in a Monster Energy Supercross game. It was fantastic. The overall look of the track was great. So let's jump into it, starting with the PC version. Alright, so here we have the first version of 2020 Denver. Now, I actually wasn't sure I was going to be able to make this video. I had a bunch of stuff going on outside of YouTube, and I wasn't super impressed with the track design, so I wasn't, really concerned about whether or not we were going to do a video on this replica, but I happened to jump into PC just to see what replicas there was, and this track blew me away. It was so good. It's so gorgeous. It fills out the stadium. All the rhythm sections, everything is correct with the track map. It's perfect. I mean, we've seen some really good replicas over the years, but I just feel like this was the best one. It scaled, the scaling of it felt fairly realistic, and it worked really well in the game. It just played really well. It wasn't super tough. It was actually a pretty easy track to, replicate the same lap over and over and over again. The toughest part was probably the first rhythm section. I believe he used the whoop, and that made it kind of tough to triple in. Not super tough, but what happened was it was easy to mess the triple up, and then you kind of had this turn it into big whoops. It happened. And it actually made for a faster way through that section, but it wasn't the prettiest way through the section. The second rhythm section in the back had several different line choices you could take, all of which felt very comparable to each other. Typically, what I was doing was I was stepping onto the table, stepping off, and then using that rhythm through the rest of that section. But according to the track map, it was perfect. It had everything. It had all the jumps. It had everything where it needed to be. It was so good. It used up the entire stadium. I didn't feel like there was, a bunch of that empty space all over. It basically ran up to the stands, the edge of the stadium. It just fit together really well. Now, I already mentioned it, but if I had to choose or pick a part of the track that I felt like was the weaker part, it would have probably been the first rhythm section. It was done really well. There was several different line choices you could take, but if you tripled in, you could triple again, but it was really easy to case the double out. And I felt like that was probably the main line through that section. So you had that issue a little bit, but I felt like overall, this was one of, if not the best replica, or at least the best looking replica I've ever seen. It was so well done. Let me know in the comments how you guys feel about it. I know Winters last year made an amazing Daytona replica. I feel like he actually did it better than the Daytona in this year's game. I don't know. I was just blown away by this track. It was so good. Really well done. And it was made by somebody different. I've never tried out one of their tracks. So really, really good job. One of, if not the best replica I've ever seen. And now we're switching over to the PlayStation. This track was probably one of my favorite tracks on the PlayStation. Jesse made a track. Shipwreck Sean made a track as well. There were several other tracks by people we've seen before, and they were really, really, really good. But I said at the beginning, but I'll say it again, I wanted to show a track or two that was decent by some creators that we haven't seen yet. You know what I mean? And I felt like this was a pretty good track. I don't feel like it was as good as the PC version we just saw, but it was still really good. I don't know if this is going to be the track we run the championship on. So if you're going out there and, you know, practicing this track, it probably won't be the track we run the race on, because I feel like there was better versions of it out there, but it was still a very solid track. Most likely what we'll do is I'll either make one or we'll use one of the other ones I was talking about. But we're going to go back to the way we were doing it, where you don't know what track it's going to be until the day of the race. Just to keep it more fair, you know, just because one guy has more time to practice the track than somebody else, I just feel like that makes it kind of a bummer for everybody else. So, yes, that's the plan at least, but really good job on this track. Let's hop on over into our final version of Denver. And here we have the final version of 2020 Denver. This was my least favorite out of the three that we have to show you today. It was fine, but the scaling felt a bit bigger, and I'm okay with that because typically if I do a replica track, I build it in a very similar way where it's a bit stretched out, the scaling is a bit bigger. The way the game plays, it's fun. I mean, the Supercross triple is huge, and the back rhythm section is pretty big too. But similar to the first track and the second track, everybody made the back rhythm section pretty much the same. There was two main ways through it, and it was the same for all three tracks. So everybody was on the same page for making that, which is awesome. The first rhythm section was a bit more subjective, depending on who made the track. I feel like that section, probably the part of the track that separated everybody's versions from each other. And this track did it significantly different from the first two tracks. But it wasn't scaled as nicely as the first two tracks, especially the first track. So that was why it was my least favorite out of the three we're showing you here. It just because it was my least favorite doesn't mean it wasn't built really well. Fun in the game, some challenging stuff on it, but overall it just didn't have the same smooth flow to it that the second track and for sure the first track, but still a solid job. I encourage you guys to give all these tracks a try if you are on PlayStation or PC, especially if you're on PC. I cannot recommend that first 2020 Denver enough. It was so good. I love it. I love that track. Probably my favorite replica I've seen. And it was a simple track. The track design was really simple this week, but it was really good. Go check it out. Let me know in the comments which track was your favorite. Which is the best replica you've ever seen? What track, what year, what game? And if you remember who made it, let us know in the comments and we can go from there. But you guys and girls are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on the channel lately. It really does mean a lot. And until the next video, take it easy.